For the longest time, I secretly wanted more. I often found myself shrinking to fit in, settling for what was comfortable, and even selling myself short. Once I finally accepted that we deserve success and we are blessed with the power to achieve it, I stopped playing small. I'm serious about building a life I love, and you should be too. I'm Denise Taylor of DeniseTaylor.live, and welcome to Life, Love, in the Pursuit of Happiness. I help women prioritize themselves, their success, and their happiness. Let's meet this week's achiever whose story will inspire you to push past your fears and soar. Well, hello, it's Denise Taylor. I am so excited to have you join me once again on this week's episode of Life, Love, in the Pursuit of Happiness. I always get super geeked when I know I'm preparing something that will be life-changing for you. That's my goal each and every week, to encourage you to build a life that you love without apology. And I believe that you've been graced with the power to do so. You see, in the Word of God, it says that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but He gave us power. And that is the power that I want you to embrace always and go. Even more, I believe that there are 5 superpowers, success superpowers is what I call them, that you can apply to your life, in fact, every area of your life, and see success. Number 1, see yourself successful. You have to envision yourself doing, being, having, and achieving. And when you do, you set the goal in your mind to bring it to pass. Superpower number 2 is shake off fear. That is important to do. Fear is going to come. In fact, it's a natural emotional response, especially when you're facing something that you might feel is a little big for you. But I want you to know you have the power to shake it off, because it's nothing more than false evidence appearing real. Number 3 is do the work. You got to put your hands to the plow. You have to do the work. And it comes with a promise, because God said He will bless the work of your hands. Number 4 is take care of you. The blessing on your life is a heavy mantle to carry. And so you have to take care of yourself in all areas of your life so that you can rise up strong to carry the weight of that greatness. Superpower number 5 is hold fast to your faith. And this is the one that is going to help you go the distance. Don't get weary in well-doing. Make sure you strap yourself up and hold fast to your faith, because with your faith, you can stand. In fact, faith is an acronym that says forsake all, I trust Him. And I believe again that God is giving you power to do it. Now, this week, I am excited to have Tsitsi Mutiti join me on the episode today. She is this week's achiever indeed. She pressed her way recently to launch her own podcast, and she did it in such great success. She landed a top 50 position in Great Britain within the self-improvement category. And the reason I'm super jazzed is I had the opportunity to be a part of her journey, to come alongside and lift her voice. I say that all the time. And what I mean by that is I believe that there are people everywhere waiting to hear from someone, and they may be waiting to hear from you. And through my business consulting firm, we support launching podcasts. And Tsitsi is one of our clients that recently launched to great success. Her podcast is The Wealth Conversation, and she talks about the experience that many of us have had to go through when we face hardship and had to understand how to turn it around in our mind before we can translate it into wealth in our hands. She and I are going to have an excellent conversation. She is going to unpack her choices blueprint, which is key. It's packed with so many great nuggets that will help you transform your wealth understanding. So please take a listen to this, and I'll see you on the other side. And I can't be more excited for Tsitsi and all the work that she's done to launch and get her voice out there for the ones waiting to hear from her. Well, I am so excited to have Tsitsi Mutiti with me. I have had the indeed pleasure of working with her for about the last month. This weekend, she celebrated the launch of her podcast. Her message is so powerful because it talks about the wealth conversation, which many people think is just money. But I think Tsitsi is going to help us understand today how it's more than that. Now, our relationship was formed because we were a part of a group. I think it was P2P, right? That we were a
Yeah.
part of. And from that, a lot of us began working and serving, and our connection called for us to work together. Where I had the great opportunity to assist Tsitsi in bringing her vision to pass for her podcast. And in working with her and listening to her message, I knew that it was more than just a blank assignment for me. Her message of empowerment around the choices for lasting wealth that we desire are ones that we need to take and really bring into our lives and begin to adjust ourselves accordingly. Now, this didn't come cheap because Sitsi had to take this journey on her own, and through her own experiences and her working experience, her professional experiences, she is helping us to really build wealth that encompasses every aspect of our lives. And the other thing that I love is the empowerment piece, where she says we all have the ability to create the wealth we desire. So, Sissy, I am so glad that you are here with me today. And I want to celebrate you in this moment. Now, we just finished up our little weekly call, and we had a chance to look at the outcome of your work. You have been working so diligently over the last month to bring your podcast to life. And today we celebrate the fact that it's not only a top 100 podcast in Great Britain, but it is a top 50 podcast in your category of self improvement. So I applaud you and I celebrate you. I wish I would have recorded your reaction when I was able to share that news with you. And I am honored to just be lifting your wings, lifting your voice. You did the hard work, but tell me, how do you feel that the Wealth Conversation podcast, which was once just a vision and a dream that you had, has come to pass, and now it is a top 50 podcast in Great Britain? Tell me how that makes you feel.
Oh, I'm excited. I can't believe it. I just feel I kept saying to myself, you need to do more, you need to do more, not realizing that, the work was yielding results. So I was just super excited to see that. And I can't thank you enough, Denise, and your team for what you've done. I keep saying to you, for at least a year and a half, I was thinking, I think I should do a podcast. I think I should do a podcast. And I had the microphone, I had the computer, I had everything, I had the internet connection. But when I said, yes, I want to work with you, when I approached you about working with you, and you actually said, yeah, let's do this. And you gave me the deadline of end of July. I was like, is this woman crazy? Like, how am I going to do it? It's taken me a year and a half just to think about this thing. So to get to the end of, before the end of July, it's already, top 50, top 100 is phenomenal. So thank you so much. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your belief, and thank you for the encouragement, because there were times when I was just like, especially when I'm listening back to the recordings, I hate the sound of my own voice. So it's just like, I don't think anyone's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
It's just that self-doubt that was kicking in, but you were always just like, keep going, and just giving me the pointers to do it. I just did my best to follow as best I could.
You did fantastic. And we jumped right in just because that was so top of mind for me. I didn't even have you introduce yourself. And so please, 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 what I love about the way that this virtual space has collapsed the world is that we can make connections from afar. And you're sitting in Great Britain, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have worked on a project together. We have yielded great results. And so it's just amazing how now we can virtually connect with people all over the world. But let me back it up. Tell us a little bit about you. Introduce yourself so that everyone can get to know just how great a person you are.
Thank you, Denise. Well, my name is Tsitsi Mutiti. I'm an award-winning investment manager, and I'm also the founder of The Wealth Conversation. I'm a certified financial coach, and I am an ambassador for ensuring women's futures in the UK. So my job, my passion is really empowering women, and I do that in the space around money, but my personal journey has shown me that it really isn't about the money, it's about everything else. So I am super, super passionate about getting high achieving women to really fulfill everything that they desire and also think about the next generation, but helping them make the right choices to get them to where they want to be sooner, quicker, faster.
Oh, that's so awesome. Now, in that, we heard a little bit about the inspiration behind the wealth conversation, but take us a little deeper to what truly inspired you to establish this platform. You have garnered some professional success, so it definitely wasn't achievement in that sense. But what inspired you to stretch yourself and go beyond just success alone to a statement of significance with this brand?
Yeah, I think since we started talking about the podcast, I'll lean more towards the fact that I'm speaking more and just putting my message out there. And it was really because I went through a time of turmoil and struggle with my money. I got myself into a lot of debt, and part of it was compounded by the fact that I'd moved from my home country, which was Zimbabwe, to the United Kingdom. And I was operating in a financial system that I didn't understand, but also using the financial knowledge that I had from back home, and when I overlaid the two, there was such a mismatch. It just wasn't working. But there were so many things I needed to do at the beginning of my journey here in the UK. And, simple things like getting myself established, getting a roof over my head. I'd left my daughter back home, so I wanted her to come. So I needed to make sure I got a job, started bringing money in. And along the way, I got myself into debt, and it was, manageable to begin with. And then it kind of snowballed because I was making decisions at the time that I felt were right, but also helping people back home, etc. And it got to a point where it was now too much. I had so much debt, and there was really no one to talk to. I was, on the outside, I was going to work. I was, my career was skyrocketing. It was moving in the right direction, but my finances were going in the opposite direction. And there was no one really close to me who I could have a conversation with about that, because they didn't have the knowledge either. Or if they did, they weren't sharing it. And even when I looked at the financial services industry, which I was a part of, but I started at the bottom, so I was working my way up at that point. I didn't even know where to turn, who to talk to, and then there was just the guilt, the shame of it all. And when I started taking the steps to get out of this situation, it really started with a conversation I had with somebody who I didn't even know, just over the phone. Mm-hmm. And that conversation got me to look at myself and think, I have the power. I can do this on my own. I don't need somebody else to do it for me. So that initial conversation helped me to simplify things, realize that my brain was making the situation worse than it actually was. And then I started to take, I just started putting one foot in front of the other and making what I now know were some of the right decisions to get me out of that debt. But all the while, there was this thing about, I felt I couldn't talk to people. It was really difficult to have that conversation. And after coming out of that, I'm now a fully qualified investment manager. I'm helping people build wealth and protect wealth. So now I'm talking not about debt anymore, but really generational wealth. And I want to talk to the same people I couldn't talk to about my debt about doing this And I'm still finding issues like getting that message across. So I asked myself the question, how can I break things down, make it simpler, and really get people to understand what I know now, and what I'm still learning. And that's how the name The Wealth Conversation came up. And it was really about finding an easier way of entering these discussions with people. Because when I used to introduce myself and say, I'm an investment manager, the shutters would come down straight away because people are just like, oh, she knows a lot. She's going to judge me. They had no idea what the backstory was to me and money, what my relationship was. So all these assumptions were being made. And now the podcast has just made it that much easier for me to share what I know, talk about the journey I've been on, but hopefully get people to start talking more about their financial situation. And I'm so excited that I can now bring on guests to the podcast who'll be sharing their story so people can see that you're not alone on this journey.
Yeah, I can relate so much to everything you share because I too was that walking contradiction, right?
Mm,
Where you're experiencing so much personal success, but you're going home and you are like, this is a mess here, right? So
yeah.
I meant to say professional success, but um that success allowed you to know, hey, there's something strong and good in me, but something's not right because my money is acting very, very, very funny, right?
Yeah.
And so I understand that dichotomy of being caught in between. I have this world where I'm rising, right? And I'm showing my skill set, I'm showing my smarts, I'm exhibiting my capabilities, my strengths are on point. But when I look at this financial aspect of my life, it feels as if it's in ruins. And I think one of the things that you hit was that defining moment where you pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. And it doesn't mean that you did it alone, but you were able to identify that I have a belief in myself that I can turn it around, that I can be disciplined enough to turn it around, and I can do what it takes. And so I can resonate with that really well. When you were discovering your coming out, right? And I'm sure we'll get into this as we unpack your blueprint, but when you were discovering your coming out, how did that sense of empowerment really play a huge factor in you getting to where you are?
Yeah, it was huge. I think, and you've touched on it. Having experiencing life in two versions, right? The success on the professional side, the absolute mess when I, open the door to my house and close the door, and asking myself, how come things are going so well on this side and not so well on that side, but I'm the same person. What was missing, what is missing. And then it really took me to a point where I just kept asking why. And some of the answers that came back to me were, you're the same person. Why don't you look at where things are going right, unpick those things and see what happens if you bring them into this situation. And one of the biggest things for me was the knowledge. I had so much knowledge now when it came to my professional side of handling money. I didn't have the knowledge of handling my personal finance.
Mm.
And there is this myth that people in financial services are great with money, and it's really not the case. And I think one of the things that stopped me from learning about my personal finance and my relationship with money was holding on to that belief that because I'm in financial services, I should be great with my own personal money.
Yeah,
But
I love that distinction, right? Because professionally, you were driving to here's what it takes for investment, for, wealth building, here's what it takes to do that. But that is a stark contrast to here's what it takes to be financially and personally financially astute. And so that
Yeah.
distinction is a really great one, because I think, to your earlier point, we can bring in limiting beliefs, we can bring in childhood experiences, we can bring in all of these things that impact this personal financial piece that has nothing to do with me advising my clients, has nothing to do with me understanding how to do the proper assessment and analysis of the data, has nothing to do with me achieving an award-winning status with how you are helping people be successful with their investments, because it gets so impacted by our personal experience and all that baggage that we bring, that's influencing us personally. And I think that may be where the choices blueprint came into play, because when I listened to the episodes of how you have broken down each of these aspects of the blueprint, it is about more of who we are personally than it is about us being disciplined enough to invest and to garner those assets and be influential that way. So help me understand how you were able to assess your experience and really identify the key elements that made a difference.
Yeah, it was a journey. Now I talk about the choices blueprint, but when I was taking those steps, there was no blueprint I was following. I was just doing what I thought was the right thing. And for me, if I go back to the situation with my debt, it was about how can I pay this down quicker, because I was really now just sick and tired of feeling like the world was like I was carrying this weight around me. And I really felt that when I walked out of my door, people could see that I was in debt. They could tell. And that was actually just me reflecting back the feelings that I had. So it took me a while to get through paying off the debt. But when I was speaking to the advisor, he had said to me, you can do it in 6.5 years. And that was kind of the trigger for me to be like, right, get yourself into gear, because I really didn't want to feel the way I was feeling then for another 6.5 years. So I managed to get myself out of debt completely in 1.5 years by simply just becoming, now I call it clarity, being clear on what I wanted to do. Like I didn't want to be in this feel this way anymore. I wanted to have freedom. I wanted to go back to those things that when I was growing up, I thought money would give me the freedom and happiness and the ability to just feel like I can do what I wanted when I wanted. And then I realized that it wasn't really about money. It was about my self-worth, what I believed about myself. And actually what was going on with me was I was letting go of the money because I had a belief that, anything good that came my way would be taken away. So I was unconsciously getting rid of this thing that could potentially create these good things in my life. So after kind of reflecting on the journey I had gone through, there were like a million steps, to be honest. And then it was really about thinking, how can I support people who are where I was and are really struggling and feel like there is no end to it? Because, when you are in debt, it affects so many things. Here we call it your credit score. I think it's FICO in the US. Mm-hmm. And that can stay with you for a very long time if you are not managing your money properly. And a lot of people think that's the end, and I'm using that as one example, that it's the end. I couldn't understand how people who had experienced bankruptcy could become millionaires again, because I thought that was the end, right? You're finished. And so understanding the fact that you can go through this and come back, I wanted other people to understand that. But I also needed them to understand that you can come out and make sure you don't go back into that cycle again. So my question then was, how do you articulate this process you went through, which was like a million steps. And that's where the choices blueprint came in. And I actually was thinking, make it simple, make it 4 steps, but there is so much that you have to deal with. It ended up being 7, right? And, people will notice as you go through the steps that I hardly talk about money until we get towards the end. Step 6 is the only one where I talk about the numbers and money, because it's not about the numbers, it's about the individual.
Well, let's unpack it. Let's take a journey through the choices blueprint. I love the fact that your method puts the onus on us to really consider our choices. I once had a pastor that used to teach us that you have freedom of choice, but you don't have freedom of consequence. And with that perspective, when I think of the choices blueprint and I think of the steps that you have ironed out, it rings so freely with that, right? That if I am following these processes and I'm being authentic with them and I'm being transparent with them, then my consequences will be good consequences. But if I am not being wholesome with how I'm approaching these things that you have laid out in your choices blueprint, then my consequences may be subpar. So let's take a journey. When we talk about the choices blueprint, choices is an acronym that you have put together to outline the 7 steps that really can bring about wealth, and bring about wealth in the holistic sense of what wealth is, which we are discovering is way more than money, right? Because much of our conversation so far has been talking about us as a person, which tells me that wealth has so many facets and dimensions to it. Now, money is an aspect of it, right? But holistically who we are, wealth is about more. And that's why I love that you have coined the wealth conversation so that we can talk about everything that is encompassed. So the breakdown, the choices blueprint for us, C, what's the first C?
The first C stands for clarity, and that's about getting clarity on where you are now and where you want to be. And I think it's definitely the first step, and we do it every day in almost every area of our lives. But when it comes to the financial aspect, there seems to be a bit of a breakdown. So my purpose for the clarity is to get people to really accept where they are and be clear on that. For me, it was opening all the letters that I was refusing to open that were coming from the debtors, because I was just like, no, I'm just going to pile them up, And when I did open them up, I realized that, okay, the situation is not as bad as it was. It was literally light bulb moment, right? And that made it easier for me to then think, okay, if this is really where I am, then the next stage that I want to get to is the point B. And I actually use a scale of 1 to 10, and I ask my clients, where are you now on a scale of 1 to 10? So if I'm on a 3 and I want to get to 10, and if I'm really clear about that and confident about that, then I know that I've got to get to step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 before I can actually reach, the 10. So knowing that, and when I was working out what I felt I need to do to reduce my debt and pay it off, it just made it that much easier to then really commit to the plan. Because now I knew where I wanted to go. And it also made it easier for me to say, I'm not going to be focusing on that other area, because this is the plan for now. But I'm not going to ignore the other area. So, I talk about wealth encompassing every area of our lives, and that's physical, spiritual, mental, social, and the financial. So as much as I was focusing on the financial at that point, I was also making sure that mentally I was strong enough to deal with it, because it was an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it is a roller coaster indeed, right? Because it's emotionally packed with every sentiment that you have going on. What I really love about clarity is it helps set the goal for you. It helps
Yeah.
you to define what success look like. And what I love that you tapped into is something that I hear a lot from people. Just because you ignore it doesn't make it go away. And so those envelopes are coming and we're shoving them to the side and we're
Yeah.
turning a blind eye to it, but you don't understand what it is you're up against or what it is that you are positioned to address and resolve until you open the envelope and get clear about just how big of a problem do I have, or just how big of an issue that needs my attention, or just how big is the debt, right? Because
Yeah.
if you just refuse to get that understanding, then you cannot resolve or confront what the true issue is. And so beginning with clarity feels like absolutely the right thing. So now let's keep taking the journey here. H is the next in choices. What's that?
That's understanding your habits and your money mindset. And I've linked the two together because they do feed off each other. But our habits are those things that we do kind of automatically without really thinking about it. Sometimes we think we are thinking about it, but the process has already been set. We've done it so many times, we just need the trigger. And my triggers were, trying to maintain relationships with people back home or feeling a sense of responsibility. That's part of the reason why I ended up with a lot of debt, because if there was a problem back home, I would be wanting to fix it. Or if someone needed money for whatever reason, my solution was to say, okay, what's the issue? How much money do you need? And I wasn't paying attention to how much money I needed. So in the end, it's, I'm trying to get money to cover my needs because I've given away money. So that was a habit that I recognized in myself, this giving habit. But the question was, why was I doing this? And I had to really kind of work on myself for a long time. And I'm still unpacking it today. This why is giving so important, or why do I do it so easily? And it really boils down to the mindset, the rules that have been pre-programmed in my brain without me really understanding, that then have led to certain actions happening when those either memories or thoughts are triggered. And one big thing for me was growing up in our household. My parents were very generous, and simple things like people coming and staying with us for weeks on end. And, as a child, you're like, why aren't they going away? Like, I want my bedroom back, that sort of thing. And before they'd leave, they'd be given money or something. I saw that happening in our household, and not realizing that as I became an adult, I was just mimicking that behavior. But I didn't understand why they were doing it. I didn't understand where they were giving from as well. So I was giving from a cup that was half empty. And now I tell people you have to give from a cup that's overflowing. Because if you can give from a cup that's overflowing, it means you can give to yourself, but you can also give more to others. So I was doing it the other way around, giving from a cup that was half empty to empty, and then it was empty. And then I was digging, and I created a hole in the cup, and it was just a mess. So understanding that for me really made it easier to then kind of get onto the next steps, and also figure out how quickly I can get to where I want to be. So how quickly I could get from 3 to 10.
That is such a phenomenal thing that you pulled out, because a lot of times we don't really recognize how our youth experience, right? How our growing up experience is impacting our decisions. And I think one of the key things you said is you didn't understand how they were able to do that, for one, right? The second thing that is so pivotal that you have said is that we can't give from a cup that's half full. We have to give from a cup that's overflowing. And
Yeah.
that principle alone is so transferable across every aspect of who we are. every aspect of who we are. You cannot give to someone professionally from a cup that's half full. You can't give to anyone spiritually from a cup that's half full. You can't give to them physically from a cup that's half full, and you certainly can't do it financially. And so learning that principle really triggers us to do two things, and that is set boundaries, right? And it also triggers us to create a plan to edify and build up those areas so that they can begin to overflow. And so I think that principle about our habits and really inspecting them so that we can understand why we are doing the things that we are doing and qualify them to make sure that they should be something that we're doing with the right types of boundaries will help us to get to that point that overflows. I love, love, love. Okay, let's keep going. What's the O in the choices blueprint?
O is overcoming limiting beliefs, and really closely linked to habits and mindset, which is why I put it straight after, because the mindset actually creates these limiting beliefs, which then also reinforces some of the habits. So if I talk about my experience, one limiting belief that I developed over time was this belief that I don't deserve to be wealthy, or I don't deserve good things to happen to me, because I experienced a lot of loss at a young age. My father passed away when I was 12, and then my mother passed away when I was 17. And then I made a decision to leave the country, my family and friends, in my late 20s. So it just, and also when I was growing up in Zimbabwe, the economy was, going into free fall. So the money I was making was losing value. So there was so much reinforcement of this loss, and that when you get something, it will be taken. And so it just made it easier for me to give, it just, because that was a habit that I had, it was something that I believed in. It was really easy for me to just kind of be like, okay, I'll give you the money. There's no need to give it back to me, or just even spend the money, and not think about how am I going to replace it, and not thinking about the impact it will have on me in the future, because, what's the point? Anything good, anything that I'm dreaming of having is just going to be taken away from me. And I really didn't realize that was playing in the back of my mind. It just, when I discovered that and unpacked all of that, it literally blew my mind, because I actually thought that I was the strong one who had gone through all this loss and was actually overcoming it, because professionally and on the outside, I was, moving forward. I was succeeding in areas where some people thought someone like me could never succeed, or they hadn't seen someone like me in those areas. So that's what I thought that experience represented to me. But actually, it was the experience of the loss reinforced that mindset of, the good things, I don't deserve them. And so whenever I got triggered to remember something about loss, or when I was trying to save someone, again, part of it was because I wanted to help people as well. So it's like, oh my goodness, I want to help. What shall I do? Okay, I've got this lump sum. I'll just give it away. It's just kind of this vicious cycle.
Yeah. And you recognizing the need to make a shift or a change so that you could overcome is just only the beginning. Taking that step, that step for corrective action on your own life, that's where the hard work is, right?
Yeah.
Because, it's one thing that says, I have a drinking problem, but it's another thing to say, I now have to get over my drinking problem.
Yeah.
So in your case, it's one thing to say, I have a giving problem, but it's quite a different thing when you have to do the work to overcome your giving. And it came from a sincere place. So it's hard to call it a problem. And that's one of the reasons why I said it's about setting boundaries, right?
Yeah.
It's about identifying. There was a principle that I learned because I too am a giver, is that you just have to set a boundary and say, this year I'm giving this much, or this is what I'm willing to give. And when you set that boundary for yourself, then you protect your ability to overindulge in the thing that you just do naturally. And so boundaries are so important. I love. Thank you for being so transparent with your experience. Let's keep taking our journey. All right, choices.
I is identify your wealth values and intentions. And actually, it's really, again, it's just a natural progression from the habits and overcoming limiting beliefs. Because once I identified that I was a giver, it made it easier for me to have that conversation with myself about why is giving so important to you? Where did it come from? And is this something you want to keep doing? And I identified that, yes, it is something I want to keep doing. It is who I am. I am a natural giver. I'm the eldest in my family. I was told that, I need to look after my younger siblings. So it just became who I was. I was always looking out for them. And it just as my world grew, I was now looking out for more people, or at least I thought I was, and trying to help those people. And the work that I do professionally, it's actually helping people get from point A to B in their wealth journey. So I identified that I was a giver. So, and there were also certain things I wanted to do for myself in terms of my own wealth journey. Initially, it was, yes, get out of debt. But then after that, what do you want? I wanted to make sure that if I was borrowing money, I'd be borrowing from myself. So having a pool of money where I could take money from there and then pay myself back instead of paying the bank interest, etc. But also, like you, being able to give to people and having a pool of money that I could give from and be like, when it's run out, and be okay with that. So I then had to work out, how can I continue giving and also give to myself and reach my goals at the same time. And the whole concept of giving to others, I flipped it around, and that's where the whole thing about giving from a cup that's overflowing came from. That I want to keep giving, but I want to give from a cup that's overflowing, because when I'm giving from a cup that's overflowing, I can give more, I can give better, and I can be in a better place as well, because then I can look after myself physically, mentally, and spiritually as well. And I can be around the people I want to be with because I've got the means to be with them. So that was one of the key steps that really turned things around. And then it helped me focus on my energy on areas that aligned with the giving, hence the wealth conversation. It's my way of giving, because I also understood I don't always have to give money.
That's good. All right, let's keep taking a journey. Choices. There's a second C. What's that?
That is commit. Commit to become the designer of your financial future. And I guess once I had gone through all the other steps, the first 4 steps, it was really easy for me to be like, okay, yeah, I definitely want to be the person that's giving from a cup that's overflowing. And these are the people that I want to give to, and then become disciplined in certain areas of my life. And it was as simple as that. And for me, I feel like that step, commit, is the easiest if you've gone through clarity, habits, overcome, and identify, because you now know, you know exactly where you are, where you want to be, and what you need to overcome. And then it's really about committing to doing the work. It's about taking the action.
Yeah, I love that. And this is where you make that promise to yourself, right? This is where you show up for you. This is
Yeah.
where you finish strong as a priority for you when you make that commitment to seeing it to the end, right? To
Yeah.
seeing that journey to the end. All right, let's keep going. We've got an E. What does E stand for?
That's evaluate, step number 6. So evaluate if your money is working as hard as you do. And that's where I look at the numbers, and it's really about, there's a bit of clarity in there, understanding what you have. What do you have? Because I strongly believe that we all have enough money. We all make enough money. It's just we are not managing it efficiently. So a lot of the time when I get to this step with my clients, they already know what they need to do, because it's clear what they don't want anymore in their lives. It's clear where they want to go. So they've got a very good idea of where their money should be going. Those wealth intentions, your money should be going towards those wealth intentions. So if you're someone who's thinking about the next generation, spending your money on, X amount on clothes a year might become, right, I'm going to take that figure, split it in half and put it towards a bank account for my children, or an investment product for my children, so that it can build up over time, because you're already spending that money. It's just going to the wrong place. So it's all about reallocation. And a lot of people want to start with the E when they are trying to get out of a situation. It's like wanting to go to the gym and starting on, the really hard exercises first, right? You're going to get yourself into a lot of pain or injury, but actually you have to, it's a very, you have to progress and take steps towards getting to there. And then, you can start lifting those heavy weights after a couple of months of progressively getting up to the level that you want to, and it will be so much easier. So for me, again, E is really easy if you've gone through the other steps.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love the example about the necessity to crawl, walk, run, right? The necessity to start before you try to just jump in. I laugh because none of us who don't know how to swim would go jump in the deep end of the pool, right? And so your perspective about fairly evaluating that and then giving your chance to get out of the gate and build is absolutely on point. And now we've made it to the end of the journey of choices. Where do we close out?
On S, which is secure your financial future. And secure came up because I was struggling for a long time to link the wealth conversation to what I do in my 9 to 5, which I believe is important, and everyone needs to be able to at least take advantage of some of the stuff that I do. So the question was, how do I link the two? Because also in my mind, they were very separate, right? I'm dealing with 2 different groups of people, but actually they all need the same information. So secure your financial future is really about thinking about what products are out there that can help you on this journey. Instead of borrowing from, using credit cards, what else can you do? For me, it was creating my own pool of money, which could be my own personal overdraft. There are a lot of apps out there now that people can use, which can help them with their spending. There's a wide array of things, but one of the biggest thing is just being able to talk to a professional in the industry, and putting things in place. In certain communities, it's very difficult for people to talk about wills. And, that is something that can help you protect your wealth that you've been building in just about any country. So thinking about that, thinking about things like insurance policies, because when I talk about secure, I'm also talking about expecting the unexpected. And it's normally when the unexpected happens that we are starting to spend money. I'll say unnecessarily, but in that moment, it's necessary. But there are ways that we can protect the money that we are making by having an insurance policy, or making sure that we've got a certain level of cash available to us, which we can use in those situations. And then finally, it's about the next generation, being able to pass down wealth to the next generation so that they are starting at a level above the generation below them. and that builds our communities.
Awesome. I love all of that. I was going to ask you for tips, but you just nailed it right there. With all the things that you talked about that we really need to give consideration to show signs of maturity when it comes to how we handle our financial position, our wealth, our legacy. I love all of those words because they are so, so very true. So you nailed it with those tips. Now, around here, I try to encourage people to build a life that they love without apology. Very similar to your message around creating wealth that we desire in every area of our life. So we are very like-minded in that sense. I'd love to close out with what I call the life, love, and happiness questions. And they focus on you really giving that wisdom to your younger self. And so tell me, what life wisdom would you tell your younger self if you could?
I would tell my younger self that life is a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it doesn't stop there. Keep going.
Keep going. I love that. My grandmother used to say, just keep on getting old, Denise. Just keep on getting old.
Yeah.
What love wisdom would you tell your younger self if you could?
Love yourself first.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And then finally, what happiness wisdom would you tell your younger self if you could?
Yeah, what happiness wisdom would I tell myself? Find something to smile about every day.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That it's an encouragement to be grateful.
Yeah.
Because a really wholesome smile comes from a place of love within us. And so that is a really, really great reminder. So listen, I don't say this because you're a top 50 podcaster. I say this because you've done the work to take a journey that has transformed your life. You not only did the work to take the journey to transform your life, but you have now made a very conscientious step to be available to serve others. And for me, that is where you transcend just being successful to being significant. And with that, I will say to you, Tsitsi, that success looks so good on you. Congratulations on your accomplishment. I am so, so honored to be a part of your journey. I know that the people who have been waiting to hear your voice are going to be encouraged and empowered. So please, please, please keep on speaking.
Thank you so much, Denise. And thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform with you.
Well, that was a great episode. I know you have to agree with me. And kudos, major kudos to Tsitsi again for her diligence to bring her podcast to life. I had the privilege of mentoring and coaching her through that experience through my business consulting firm. And so let me say this, if you are interested in launching your own podcast, we were able to get Tsitsi's up and going in 30 days. Yes, 30 days. It is powerful and it landed a top 50 spot at its launch. Super, super efforts. And a lot of that is attributed to the launch plan that we put together. So if you know that there are people waiting to hear you and you've got a message from your heart that you have been inspired to give them, reach out to me. I would love to be a part of your journey and help lift your voice. As always, I'm excited that you listen. I'm excited that you subscribe. I'm excited that you rate. And even more, I want you to share. Think of someone in your circle who needs a nugget or two from what was shared today. And even more than thinking of them, share it with them. They will be so over the top excited that you thought of them and to hear from you. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we'll see you next time. Well, that's it, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Don't ever forget that you truly deserve life, love, and all the happiness your heart can hold. Be relentless in building a life you love without apology. I'm Denise Taylor, and you can always find me in our free Facebook community. Life, love, in the pursuit of happiness, easy to find. Now, if you want more information about my success superpowers, as I'm sure you do, download my free Success Superpowers ebook at denisetaylor.live/podcast. And one last thing, always embrace your power and go.